Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Science of Fat Loss webinar. We are so thrilled to have each and every one of you here as you are joining this free webinar. Comment below and tell us your favorite treat. Again, as you are joining this free webinar, comment below and tell us your favorite treat. If you're catching the replay, welcome. Still comment below. We want to hear it. My name is Amanda Tress. I'm the founder and CEO of The Faster Way to Fat Loss.
My name is Lee Bergen. I'm a pro trainer with The Faster Way.
And I want to hear your favorite treat.
Okay, I love a hamburger and french fries. I do. I love that meal right there.
Okay.
What about you?
You already know my favorite treat. Come on.
I know. It's just kind of our mascot.
It's a donut. Donuts are my favorite treat. I've never met a donut that I didn't like. Truly, honestly.
I love that.
Never a single one. Oh my goodness. Well, we are so thrilled to dive into the science of fat loss because there is so much confusion and misinformation out there. This training is specifically for wellness professionals. Perhaps you are a personal trainer, a nutritionist, a dietitian, even a doctor, and you want to learn more about the science behind fat loss so you can help your clients. Also, if you just simply want to learn more so you can empower yourself to lose more fat and keep it off, welcome. You're in the right place as well. Our first guest is Dr. Steven Cabral. He is a member of our scientific advisory board here at Faster Way to Fat Loss. We hope you enjoy the interview. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Science of Fat Loss webinar. I am so thrilled to be here with Dr. Steven Cabral, who is a friend and colleague of mine. Dr. Steven Cabral is a board-certified doctor of naturopathy. We are going to dive into why some people are able to burn fat when others seem to be storing fat. This free webinar is specifically for wellness professionals who are looking to improve their own education so that they can help their clients. This webinar is for anyone who wants to take a deep dive on the science behind fat loss so you can feel more empowered to burn fat effectively. As you know, my name is Amanda Tress. I'm the founder and CEO of The Faster Way to Fat Loss. I have been researching fat loss for, what feels like 2 decades. I have been implementing Faster Way to Fat Loss strategies with now over 300,000 clients, empowering these clients to burn fat and transform their health. And in the Faster Way, we have many cutting-edge nutrition and fitness strategies that we do implement. So we'll be addressing those as we go through this particular free webinar. And Steven, thank you for being here. You know, I think that you and I have related over the fact that the fitness industry alone, or even the nutrition industry alone, hasn't equipped professionals to truly empower their clients to see body composition changes or to lose weight in a sustainable way. Because what we were taught as wellness professionals, trainers, nutritionists 15 or 20 years ago was that you should eat less and exercise more in order to lose fat. That's what we were taught. In my certifications, calories in, calories out, where you and I went on a journey of doing a deep dive on research and we experimented with our own bodies and then we implemented different strategies with our clients and we saw that calories in, calories out is not the answer. That is not the answer. So Steven, I'm just so grateful to have you here because you bring such an expertise and wisdom to this topic. Let's dive right into a discussion on hormones and the hormones involved in fat loss. Many of the strategies that we implement in Faster Way, including intermittent fasting and carb cycling, are very much so they are related to the hormones that are going to be able to give us the ability to burn fat. So share with us a few different hormones that are really key when it comes to a discussion on fat loss.
Yeah, happy to. It's great to be here. Great to be chatting with your audience about this topic and going deeper on the science. So one of the things I always like to say is don't focus on necessarily where you are right now and the symptoms of what you're dealing with, which oftentimes is the weight gain or the stubborn body fat that's difficult to lose, even if you have been dropping your calories and exercising more. Because if that's the end game, then basically you need to whittle your diet down to almost nothing and continue to put out more exercise. And I shared a study from The Biggest Loser that says, if you continue to do that, you're going to permanently cause metabolic dysfunction, which means you'll never be able to increase your calories in the future and you'll still gain back the weight either way. And so that was a really disheartening study. The good news is that if you don't just look at, okay, someone has elevated blood sugar levels. So what do you do if you have elevated blood sugar levels? Well, then you just don't eat any carbohydrates ever. But we know that that can't be the plan. But the nutrition gurus out there will tell you to do that, because if you don't eat carbs, then you can't have elevations in blood sugar. That's actually not true. And so what we do from a science-based approach, from a holistic integrative approach, is we look at, why is it that some people can eat carbohydrates and not spike their blood sugar, or the blood sugar goes up and then it comes back to a normal level and they burn body fat just normally as an average person? Okay, so we have to look at, what are the hormones that affect blood sugar or glucose? So what we do is we look at the main sex hormones first. So we're looking at estrogen, and if it's elevated, or even if progesterone's low, so estrogen looks elevated, we have something called estrogen dominance. So that's going to cause inflammation in the body. It's going to cause adipose tissue expansion. So more body fat, it looks like, right? So your adipose tissue or tissue, and they expand, they get larger when you put on more weight. And so what happens is those expand. When they expand though, they even produce more estrogen. So now you're producing even more estrogen, which can lead to low mood, sleep issues, water retention, bloating, and much more, that often cause you to not have the energy to want to go to the gym, to want to work out, and even to follow a nutrition plan, right? Because you want the carbs for more of those comfort food. So we look at estrogen, progesterone, we look at testosterone. If testosterone's low, even in women, really important, that means you're not going to be able to have the same muscle tone, meaning like you're not actually going to be able to have the same propensity to be able to build up muscle, not get bulky, but actually keep the muscle mass that you have, maybe gain a little bit to boost your metabolism. So that's really important, because if your muscles aren't active, if they're not anabolic, or they're not growing, then they don't even need to soak up glucose that we'll talk about in a little while. And your muscles are meant to uptake those carbohydrates, that end product, which is the glucose. Then we look at cortisol. And if cortisol is elevated chronically due to stress, well, it causes the estrogen dominance, it causes the lower testosterone. And from there, we get the poor sleep, which can lead to elevated blood sugar. We get the increase in blood sugar from being in fight or flight. And then we get that higher insulin-based response that we can start to go into as well. So blood sugar is way more than just looking at, oh, I have elevated blood sugar, I shouldn't eat any carbs. Because if you do that, you cause actually more chronic stress hormones to be produced. And that is when the metabolism really begins to drop.
Oh my goodness. So Stephen and I could literally speak on the topic of fat loss for probably 3 days straight, and we're going to try to consolidate into about 25 minutes. You mentioned progesterone. You mentioned estrogen. Having low progesterone, high estrogen, or even normal estrogen and low progesterone will cause estrogen dominance. You'll have toxic water weight. We'll have all kinds of issues with sleep. Having chronically elevated levels of cortisol, of course, is a very big factor in the inability to burn fat. We'll discuss that. You mentioned testosterone, and then you also shared about insulin. I do want to dive a little bit into insulin resistance, because this is something that many of our clients, we've had over 300,000 clients go through the Faster Way. Many of our clients have struggled with. I myself have struggled with insulin resistance. I was on blood pressure medication as a teenager. I had polycystic ovary syndrome and was very insulin resistant. And so I incorporated a strategy called intermittent fasting to help with insulin sensitivity. So talk with us about the importance of the insulin response when it comes to burning fat.
Yeah, this is a crucial factor, because we do know that those people whose blood sugar is elevated above, typically it's above a 95, which is your normal. If you were to just take a glucometer, take a little finger prick with a lancet, put 1 drop of blood on a glucometer that anybody can get at their local drugstore or on Amazon, wherever it might be, you can take your fasting glucose level in the morning. If that's above a 95, it really means that you weren't adequately burning body fat overnight. Why does that matter? Well, if you're doing intermittent fasting or just in general, the greatest percentage of calories or fuel is going to come from fat when you're at rest. So it's a great time to be burning body fat after dinner, whenever you stop eating, for 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours the next day. But if your blood sugar is still elevated, well, you're not tapping into that body fat. So that's absolutely crucial. And one of the issues is that the cells are not getting the signal to be able to open the door to shuttle in that glucose. So those carbohydrates that you ate, or even from protein. If you're on a high protein diet, protein, the amino acids in protein can make glucose. So just always keep in mind, your body needs glucose to live, no matter what anybody else tells you. You can't live on just fats. Like that's not how the human body works. It's going to find a way to make glycogen to keep your blood sugar levels normal, between like a 75 and a 95. So how does that work? Well, when blood sugar gets elevated in your blood, whether you eat carbs or not, because we can get into what other things can spike blood sugar, your pancreas produces something from the beta cells that is actually called insulin. So, or beta cells are producing insulin. Insulin goes into the bloodstream, and its job is to actually shuttle glucose and open the doors to your fat cells, your muscle cells, and your liver. But it's actually in reverse order. So the good news is just because you eat carbs or just because you have glucose in your blood being taken in doesn't mean you're putting on body fat. It goes to basically liver stores. Once the liver stores are full, it's going to go to muscle stores. Once the muscle stores are full, and it kind of goes to both. If you worked out, you need to replenish muscle stores. Only extra will then go to body fat. The problem is that insulin does not, or the cells do not get the signals from insulin. So the body becomes what's called insulin resistant. And then your body produces more and more insulin to keep up with getting the sugar out of the blood and into the cells. That is the beginning of type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. It's also a factor in PCOS and many other, especially female health-based issues.
Yeah. Insulin resistance is a major issue that so many women, so many of our clients deal with. Intermittent fasting has been very key in increasing insulin sensitivity for myself and many of our Faster Way family members as well. Let's talk a little bit about carb cycling, because you mentioned the need for carbs. No matter what else you hear, ladies or gents listening to this webinar, you do need carbs in order to optimally function. You and I actually, Stephen, were recently discussing a couple of our colleagues who have only like steak wrapped in bacon for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they just don't look like they're thriving. They don't look like they're doing well. I'm like, man, maybe you should have an apple every once in a while or a banana. Let's talk a little bit about carb cycling, why it does work, and why carbs are so important even for thyroid function.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't mentioned the thyroid yet, but it's a key factor. And the problem with the thyroid is that you could absolutely have nutrient deficiencies, which makes the thyroid not function as well as it should. Or you could have certain toxicities, heavy metals like arsenic, cadmium, fluoride, mercury, aluminum all affect the thyroid as well. And that's an issue. But oftentimes it's because of chronic stress that your thyroid, which really regulates your metabolism, your thermostat of the body, begins to lower your thyroid. But one of the things that actually reduces cortisol levels in stress, that's a stress hormone, and improves thyroid is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are good for your gut microbiome. They feed the good gut bacteria. If you get bloated and gas from eating carbs, most likely you have bacterial overgrowth in the small intestine, which you shouldn't have, or you have yeast overgrowth. It's just a sign that you need to rebalance that. It doesn't mean stop eating carbs. It means that, hey, let's fix the gut. And so why this is also important is because people are just using protein in place of carbohydrates. People are saying carbohydrates are not an essential food. Well, you could say that because you can make glucose from protein, but it's way more energy for your body. And it takes way more of processes, which then depletes you even further. And they're the things that you get from carbohydrates that you can't get from other foods. And so you can either just eat more protein, which is not ideal because that's not a longevity-based diet, or you can eat some carbs. So if you know that your body needs glucose, why not eat some carbs? And then by using carb cycling, intermittent fasting, and then finding out where you should be for your carbohydrates, that is the best way to do it. And then also with the understanding is that when your metabolism gets healthier and it gets higher, you can actually eat more carbohydrates. So if you can only eat 50 carbs now, well, the goal is to get to maybe more than 100. But it's not going to happen overnight. When your cell membranes become more adept at hearing the signals of insulin and improving glucose uptake, and your resting metabolic rate rises as well, you're going to be able to eat more carbs. So over the course of, we typically see 3 to 6 months, you're going to see your body's ability to use carbohydrates to a much greater degree.
Yeah. In the Faster Way, we leverage carb depletion strategies on low carb macro days, but on other days, we do incorporate more carbohydrates. These are usually our heavy lifting days. And I call carbs the happy macro because, of course, you do have increased serotonin in the brain when you consume carbohydrates. I've met plenty of people who are living in extreme low carb diets, lifestyles. And I'm like, man, you are kind of grumpy most of the time. Maybe you should try an apple. So carbohydrates are really key. Again, it's important that you have the right amount of carbs. So in the Faster Way, we empower our clients to not overeat on carbs. We don't want you to overconsume on carbohydrates or underconsume on carbs, but there's really a sweet spot that you can find when it comes to carbs. So we've discussed intermittent fasting, we've discussed carb cycling, and we've also talked about insulin resistance, estrogen dominance a bit. Let's zero in on cortisol. We have mentioned cortisol. We see so many women who are chronically stressed, chronically elevated levels of cortisol, and they're having a very, very difficult time burning fat, specifically around the midsection. So why is understanding cortisol so important for overall fat loss?
Yeah, I think this is the missing link for most people is understanding cortisol, and your cortisol numbers, not just when you go to your doctor and have your blood work run in the morning, but actually running an at-home lab test like the stress, mood, and metabolism or something to that degree, because you want to see cortisol over 24 hours. So you want to see your total output of cortisol. And the truth is this, that most people, and our practice is about 75% women. So we can talk, in large generalities because we've worked with hundreds of thousands of clients, like yourself, and we've seen their lab work. And this is at-home lab work that anybody can do. And the truth is this, cortisol numbers look pretty normal in the morning, if not low. So you might say, well, I'm not actually producing a lot of cortisol. And the problem is that most women and men as well, but most women wake up tired and a little groggy, and they need their caffeine to get going, which is a sign that your body is really, it's aging, it's breaking down, it's more catabolic, lower metabolic rate. Probably thyroid's not working that well either, because thyroid helps to signal cortisol to turn on around 6 a.m. So here's what we find. Cortisol is low in the morning and then it's elevated at night. That's called a dysfunctional diurnal rhythm. So now women can't fall asleep very well, or they don't get deep sleep, REM sleep to help repair their body. And if cortisol is elevated at night, especially, that means glucose levels are going to be elevated. And the reason is that cortisol is called a glucocorticoid. And basically all that means is it's a stress hormone that elevates blood sugar because it's telling your body that it's in fight or flight. And if you're in fight or flight, sorry, but you can't burn ketones, and you're not going to burn that much body fat because you need a fast fuel source. And the only fast fuel source out there, without going too deep into like anabolic based workouts, is glucose. And so you need glucose to be able to deal with the fight or flight. The problem is there's nothing that you're running from, and you're just chronically stressed. And so that is why there can be elevations of cortisol and glucose then overnight, which then shuts off a lot of that fat burning. So the truth is most people have never been taught that. But when you learn that, then you can work in a reverse process to say, okay, I get it. I understand. I can't just go low carb all the time. And again, I believe in low carb, by the way. I just don't believe in chronic low carb diets. Like that's the thing, is like, you just say, oh, okay, well, I'm listening to this. That means I should eat 200 grams of carbs a day. I'm not saying that either. You need to start to get the response to carbohydrates to improve. And it actually then starts with, do you have elevated cortisol? Do you have lower levels of thyroid? Do you have estrogen dominance? Do you have low levels of testosterone? Once you know that, then you can start to ramp up the metabolism, calm the stress levels, and glucose levels will magically go back to normal. And that's what we want. Then we can start to move those carbs up.
Yeah. We both have several examples of clients we've worked with who went on vacation and suddenly were able to lose fat, even though they weren't following particular workouts or a diet protocol. And we were kind of racking our brain and pulling our hair out, like, how did they lose 3 pounds when they were on vacation? But explain that phenomena to our listeners, because you shared this on stage at our Fast Way to Fat Loss Coach Conference. You said, listen, I had a client who was doing all the right things, not burning fat, goes on vacation, comes back, has lost a few pounds. So share really quickly with us that phenomenon.
Yeah, they were on the vacation workout plan, which I was 27 years old, just quick backstory, did everything that I knew of in order to help this client to lose weight. And that's what we did. So throughout my 20s, I did what is, now normal nutrition, but back then it was high level nutrition. Like it was intermittent fasting. It was all these different anti-inflammatory based diets, but that wasn't that common around the late 90s and early 2000s. So we were doing that and it was always working great for our clients. I met this client, we did it. It was working great for like 4 to 6 weeks. And then she just plateaued and then she was following the same plan and she actually started to gain weight. And so I made it even more, like stringent, and it didn't work. She gained even more weight. So then she goes on vacation, literally for a week to Hawaii. She comes back. She doesn't want to do our weekly weigh-in. We do it anyways. She's down 6 pounds. And I'm like, how is this humanly possible, right? That she lost weight on vacation while having any foods that she really wanted to. She didn't overeat, but she had any foods she wanted to. She had a couple glasses of alcohol. But what was she doing? Relaxing by the pool, no laptop, no work. She was an entrepreneur. She worked all the time. She got like 2 to 3 hours more sleep a night, got massages, like all of those things mattered. So what did she do? I didn't know it at the time, but ultimately what she was doing was reducing glucocorticoids, cortisol, fight or flight, right? That's what she did, the sympathetic nervous system. She switched to the parasympathetic nervous system. When that happened, there was no need to continue to pump out all this glucose all day from her pancreas. Her pancreas was happy. It got to rest. And then when the blood sugar came down, inflammation came down. When inflammation came down, she wasn't holding on to this water weight. She was able to burn more fat effectively. And, I want to just mention this point. What most people consider a lot of body fat, I'd call toxic water weight. People are holding 5, 10, 20 pounds of toxic water weight. And people are like, what's this whole thing, toxic water weight? Inflammation causes water retention. That water retention should never be there. You can look at different compartments of the body. Muscles, 72% water. Blood, X%. Like you can go through the whole body. But all that puffiness under the subcutaneous layer of fat below the skin, all that water doesn't need to be there. That's a demon that your body's holding. You drop glucose, you drop inflammation, you drop 5 to 10 pounds in a week or two. And I see it all the time. I'm sure you do as well.
Absolutely. Yes. I love that story because many of our listeners are trainers. They are nutritionists. They are naturopathic doctors, and they're working with clients and they're saying, do intermittent fasting, live, with a whole food based diet, and still people are in plateau. They're struggling to burn fat. Here's the deal. Every single person listening to this webinar has stress in their life. It's not a question of, can you eliminate stress? Can you go on a vacation to Hawaii or Costa Rica or wherever and just live on the beach for the rest of your life? The answer is no, it's just not our reality. So we must become stress effective. And so once you realize that cortisol and stress is such an important component of burning fat, you can reverse engineer a bit of a plan. It's so funny because I am going through parent therapy with one of my children who happens to be very impulsive and very intense. And, we do certain things to have that, kind of ability to de-stress a little bit. We put our finger right here. We call it magic mustache. There's the parasympathetic nervous system connection there. We do bubble breathing. We blow bubbles and we just breathe. It's almost like meditation for a 4-year-old. But
great. Yeah.
It is so important. So as you're listening to this, consider these different hormones that are involved in fat loss and consider these different strategies that can also be key to balancing hormones. Stephen, this has been so informative. What we haven't really discussed yet is fitness and workouts and how that can either help or hinder when it comes to burning fat and losing weight. So we're going to kick it off to Natalie Jill, in addition to Lee Bergen. They're going to talk through some of the strategies that we can incorporate from the fitness and exercise side to burn fat effectively using science-backed strategies. But Stephen, thank you so much. We truly appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All right. That was such powerful information. My name is Lee Bergen. I'm a pro trainer with the Faster Way to Fat Loss. I've been in the fitness industry for about 20 years. I own a gym in Texas with my husband, and I am so passionate about helping people and finding where they are struggling. And that is what you guys want to do as well. And I am so honored and excited to be joined today by Natalie Jill. Natalie is such a great pioneer in the fitness industry as well. She has authored several books, and she is changing the conversation and the way that people start to speak in midlife. All right, women, if we are in midlife, we are just getting started, and Natalie is the perfect person to help us understand that. So, Natalie, today, as we continue this conversation from Dr. Cabral and Amanda, we're going to talk a little bit about nutrition and fitness and kind of how to move more into the science of fat loss and what these wellness professionals can do together with us. So, Natalie, talk to me about your experience with kind of what to eat. We know now what the hormones do.
Yeah.
What kind of foods are we supposed to be eating?
So it's interesting. We heard a lot of talk about cortisol and insulin and blood sugar spiking and all of that. And that's such important information. But then there's the whole other aspect of, but then what do we eat? What are the foods that we eat? And how do we balance them together? And this is something that is so often overlooked because it's not just because like a carb is not just a carb. For instance, an apple is a carb, broccoli is a carb, so is a potato, and so is a cookie. So what types of foods do you actually eat? So as he was talking about insulin and all of these things, what I want people to hear is number one is sticking to whole, natural, real food is key and shifts so much for people. And we think just because something is low fat or low sugar or it says healthy on the package, but that's not a healthy food. It's still a packaged processed food.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, people get really intimidated by whole food. They think they have to go to Whole Foods or a place where they might have to spend a lot of money, but it's really taking that process out, the processed food out. And we say that if the food comes from the ground or has a mother, it's okay to eat. And that really will help kind of reduce that water toxicity as well. And it will be the beginning place to help balance out those hormones. So many people say, I wonder where I'm supposed to start. Where do I start? Where do I start? And I say, let's look at your plate. Do you see your meat? Do you see your potato? Do you see your vegetables? And then as we continue to consume whole foods and as we age and as we go through life, we're going to find out what foods agree best for our body. Kind of, we become the scientist of our own body. I remember going through a keto, I call it a keto disaster. All right. When I was training clients, I would look at them and I was watching them go through these different fad diets. And I'm thinking, what are you doing? She's intermittent fasting. Okay, what are you doing? She's doing keto. And I was like, man, everybody's looking, just old. And I just wanted to tell them, like, please don't tell anybody I'm your trainer because this is not working well. But I said, let me go ahead and try what you're doing. So I tried the keto disaster, and I literally was checking my blood every single day for a month and could not get into ketosis. But what I did look like was that I was in my second trimester of pregnancy. My hair was falling out. I mean, everything was going in the wrong direction. So I was able to empathize with people. And this is when I found the Faster Way. As a trainer who had been training people on the floor for years, I wanted to say, okay, what is this program taking people down? Where's the dead end that this program is going to lead people to? And what I found was it was not the dead end. It was actually opening up the conversation to so many more fitness professionals and wellness professionals who now have something to say. I remember when we were not supposed to be talking about nutrition with our clients because we were only supposed to be speaking about exercise. What a massive disservice. I would think I'm stealing their money. If I'm only working out with them and not talking to them about nutrition, then I'm stealing their money. What is the technique that you use to define how much food people should eat? Because now we know what to eat.
Yeah. So, and I do want to clarify one thing about unprocessed food. So just when something has more than one ingredient, it is okay, but it's can I pronounce all the ingredients? Do I know what's going in here? So for instance, when you look at Faster Way recipes, they're fantastic. There's more than one ingredient in that. So it's not about, I'm just eating an apple, I'm just eating a piece of chicken. But it's, are we combining whole, natural, real food? So I wanted to explain that. As far as portions, number one, intermittent fasting takes care of a lot of things right there because you are going to not be in craving mode all day long when you are intermittent fasting. I'm such a huge fan of that. Yeah. When you are eating all day long, you are continually spiking glucose and insulin all day long. And that's why we think we're hungry. We can't have to keep eating. We keep snacking. And you are in this higher state all day long, which creates a problem. So just intermittent fasting alone changes that in portions. As far as portions, and I know, Lee, Faster Way has a slightly different method method, but it's very
Mhm.
similar. I always
Yeah.
have taught using the hand.
Yeah.
So just using a hand and, basically thumb is fat, palm is protein, carbs are here. And
Yeah.
it's super simple to start balancing. What's missing from general diet plans and diet culture is all of those have this extreme measures that make it so difficult to do on your own. I'm such a fan of programs and communities that actually teach lifestyle nutrition. And this is missing. I mean, Faster Way is one of the only companies that I see actually doing that, is teaching how you can actually apply stuff into real life.
Exactly. And what you brought up was the community. We are doing this together. We are changing a generation together. Natalie, I'm going to ask you, how old are you?
51.
I have to, because you're just gorgeous. I'll be 50 in a couple of months, and I call this kind of the good side. So when you're saying that we're not supposed to be doing this alone, we're not. We have to get our arms around this challenge, because people have been under eating for so long. There was a colleague that I work with who said, if you get punched in the chest, you feel that initial blow. But if you're constantly just getting tapped, just little by little by little by little, after about 15 years, now you've got the indentation of that blow. That's what chronic dieting does. That's what consistent under eating does.
Yes.
And now using your method, using our method, using some method to be able to measure the amount of food that we need will actually kind of fill our gas tank up a little bit so that we can perform.
For sure.
So if we're talking about performance, then if anybody knows you, they know that you've got the abs. Okay. I started to follow you literally in Instagram. You were one of the very first people that I started to follow because of your ab circuits and because of your DVDs. So talk to us about your fitness evolution. What have you done? What are you doing now? How has that kind of evolved?
Yeah, I'm going to share that. I am curious though, people that are on right now, and I'm just curious if you can put it in a chat. I'm just wondering, just to show, if you are on because you are a health professional and you're on to learn more for your clients, or if you are on for yourself. I'm just curious. You can just say myself for my clients, and just so I know who we're talking to here. I think we've got a mix, but I'm super curious.
Great question.
So as far as abs, so the questions are more like, why did I do that, or what do I teach with that? So number one, good. We're getting a whole bunch of. I can see that. This is great. Thank you. So what I know for sure about abs is it's not just 100% made in the kitchen. So some people say abs are made in the kitchen. Fine. Yes, that's a huge portion of it. Nutrition is critical. Also, how we do our workouts. Are we progressing? Do we have intensity? Yeah. Too many times we get into comfort zone. We get into repeat mode. Oh, I've always done 3 sets of 12 of this. I'll keep doing 3 sets of 12 of this. That's not progression or intensity. The reason I love up-leveling, constantly learning, being part of communities, taking on and learning from newer experts, learning in up-leveling game, even if you are a trainer yourself, is because you have to create progression but intensity to change your body. The reason I had abs and continue to have abs is because my workouts, although not long, they always focus on progression and intensity. Am I challenging myself? Am I up-leveling? And am I learning from experts to keep my muscles guessing, to keep progressing, to keep challenging myself?
I absolutely love that. You are 100% right. And I could not agree with you more. And I do hear what you're saying. I think that many people are in their rut. They're comfortable. They're not understanding what needs to happen. And if I could count the times that I've heard muscle in this conversation between Amanda and Dr. Cabral and you and me, muscle is the place that we need to really build and to hold our structural integrity, especially as we age. But if we are continuing to do long form cardio, I remember seeing people at the gym and I'm like, oh, hey, Carol, you've been on that elliptical for a couple hours. She's like, yeah, I'm working legs. And I was like, okay, well, that's one way to kind of feel the burn, but nothing's happening. You're just literally melting and burning that candle. You're not building the support structure. Correct. And I feel like a lot of women sometimes are intimidated. They're scared. And I feel like trainers sometimes don't know how hard to push people. So here at Faster Way, what we love to do is we program for the entire year. So it's not just come in here 6 weeks and you're done. We'll, repeat. We program and we pair our nutrition to go along with our workouts for the entire year so that people will say, how many sets and reps do I do? We'll tell you. Come do our workouts. We'll tell you. And that way we can work together. For many fitness professionals and wellness professionals who do teach classes, it's important for you guys to understand that we work with you to be able to help you understand how to logically progress these clients and these people and yourself. So
Yeah.
Natalie, have you ever had any injuries or have you ever gone through some
Yeah.
places where you feel stuck?
Yeah. So a couple things, and I want to answer that for sure. And I also
Yeah.
want to piggyback on what you just said about muscle.
Yeah.
What many of you may not know is the more muscle you have, the more calories you actually burn at rest.
Totally.
It's pretty, so to me, the ultimate anti-aging hack, the
Mhm.
number one thing you can do to look younger, feel younger, be younger, biologically younger, is add muscle. Add
Totally.
muscle. And how do we add muscle? We add that through protein increase, through our nutrition, carbs too.
Mhm.
And we add that through intensity and progression and bearing it up, growing muscle. That is absolutely critical. You have to add the muscle.
Yeah.
Okay.
I liked
now-
what you said, growing, increasing
You've
protein.
got-
So the
you've gotta
stronger
grow.
you get, the more you have to eat. And that's, I think too, what's important is people don't understand, like, hey, hang on, am I in a reverse diet? Yeah, you might actually be increasing the amount of food that you eat so that you can grow that muscle. So you
Absolutely.
can't grow it from nothing. And if this is a vessel that's going to hold that glycogen, well, let's get it up there so that we can eat as much food as possible, right?
As far as the injury question, I want to answer that
Mhm.
too.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
injuries, as we get older, it is true that things change. What's not true is what the result has to be. So number one, so things might get harder. They may feel more challenging as we age. And so injuries are more likely to happen. The reason that my injuries happen, I'm super convinced right now, is from imbalances. If you are not fully training and up leveling correctly, like learning the correct way and doing functional training all the way around, you do create injuries. When you think it's your knee hurting or your hip hurting or your back, it's usually something else. For instance, most of you don't know, we've got a lot of women on, I'm sure. Most of your lower back pain, you know what it actually is coming from? Believe it or not, it's not your core. You know what it is? Undeveloped glutes. Undeveloped glutes. When you have weak glutes, you get lower back problems. You know why? Because you could have degeneration in your spine. Everybody, by the way, in your 50s, you do an X-ray, do an MRI, you have degeneration in your spine on some level. Why do some people feel it and some don't? The people that have solid muscle tissue in their glutes, they don't feel their lower back pain because that takes over for your lower spine. So muscle is so critical to preventing injuries. And if you have something you're ignoring, like knees hurting, you start limping. So now you start feeling it in your hip, right? Then you start feeling it in your neck. So there's a whole chain reaction from having imbalances. When you're not learning correctly from trainers and varying it up and coupling proper nutrition with it, you do risk a lot greater chance of injury.
You are 100% right. And that injury, we start to attribute to our age. I mean, how many times people say, I'm just getting older. This is what's happening. I'm just getting older. This is why I'm going through sarcopenia. I'm just getting older. This is why, I'm not anabolic anymore. That is not true. It is literally the lack of food, the lack of proper training, and the compensation. So muscle, I do not want people to fear. I want people to be encouraged by learning how to gain muscle and learning how to gain that balance. And again, I've had injuries just like you have, but I'm telling you, one place that I spend a lot of time and focus on are those glutes. And what we want to do is not exercise more. We want to exercise correctly.
Exactly.
I heard you say earlier that your workouts are short. Mine too. People ask all the time, how much time do you spend in the gym? As little as possible. I don't want to be in there all day. If I go in there all day, I'm just heckling my friends. I just start to talk. So I just want to make sure that I am really focusing on what I need to do. And we are in and out because we also have lives. I mean, you've got a daughter, I've got a daughter and a son, and we've got so many things that are just keeping us busy. And I don't want to be taking all of my mental ability and time in that gym.
So the funny thing is if anyone challenges this short workout time thing, Lee, this is what I always say, go hold a plank for 5 minutes. Go hold a plank for 5 minutes. Can any of you hold, I'm sure some people that have been training with Lee and Lee Superstar can hold a plank for 5 minutes. I'm sure of it, but go hold a plank for 5 minutes. Most people cannot hold a plank for 5 minutes, but what would happen if you worked every day towards holding a plank for 5 minutes? You would change your body. So it's short amounts of time that change. When you do things correctly, you don't need big, long workouts. You don't need big, long. Now, if you enjoy doing that, that's amazing. But to get result, shorter, more intense progression. By the way, I want to explain intensity. And Lee, I know we've talked about this before. We feel the same way. Intensity doesn't mean go be an Olympic athlete. Intensity means intense for you. Means is something challenging you. 3 sets of 12 in the gym, just repeating the same exercises is not progression or intensity. We're lying to ourselves if we think it is. Changing up your workout, trying new things, making things challenging, harder for you. That's intensity.
Exactly. So if walking is your first step, no pun intended on that, but if walking is your very first step on what you're going to do to become fit, then that walking is it alone. So then later on, we start to add a little bit of a hill. Maybe we start to walk a little bit faster.
Yeah.
So every single person, wherever they are at, is where they are starting. And that's what's important to understand, is that we don't have to throw a bunch of workouts and a bunch of strategies and a bunch of things at people to make them more confused, because Natalie, it is confusing enough out there. And what the Faster Way has done, it has brought everything together, and it has allowed people to say, okay, this is where I'm starting. That's where I want to go. And these are the reasons why. And I feel it's just such an injustice for people who are in the wellness industry who don't know how to pull people out of a keto disaster or know how to train people to prevent injury. And that's not their fault. It's just because they don't have the time to learn more, or because they might be intimidated, or because they just really love what they're doing that might work for them. But bio-individuality is such an important piece of this entire picture. And that is one of the reasons that I love the Faster Way. So Natalie, let me ask you this. Why in the world have you talked to us? Like, why are we friends? What's going on?
First of all, I'm obsessed with Lee. I'm just going to be real. I'm a total girlfriend of her. I want her arms. I might have mastered the ab thing, Lee, but your arms are like next level. So like, I was like, what is this woman doing to have those non-jiggle? Because ladies, how many do you like wave and it flaps in the wind? I mean, that's like a thing with us women. Lee does not have that. She's mastered that. So that's number one, Lee. I'm just, truth be told, that's one reason. The second reason, y'all, I have books in stores. I've sold fat loss programs for years and years and years. And I've taught other people how to create fat loss programs. And I've like finally woken up and I'm like, what the heck was I doing? Because seriously, what they've built here at Faster Way, look, I stand behind all my programs. No, so if you've done my programs, I'm not saying they do work. They're great. But I'm thinking from a business standpoint, what was I doing? Because when you have a system like Faster Way, where they are super vision focused and they are constantly staying up to date with the science, the best trainers, the best nutrition, the best practices, they keep it up next level and they bring it in a community and make it so easy. To me, if I was a trainer and that was my business or a nutritionist, I would be crazy not to be bringing clients in through this, because the system's built, it's easy, it's there. And it helps protect us as trainers, nutritionists, because we don't have to do it alone. We can do what we do best: lead, support, empower, teach, but we have a whole system to help us. So that's the first thing I want to say. If you're on and you are in the health profession, like, what I would do is I would join a Faster Way round. I would get in there. I'd understand it. I'd participate. And then I would bring people along. Number one, not only will you make more money, you will get clients better results without having to add more work to yourself. And if you are actually, if you're not in the health and wellness field and you just want your own transformation, why wouldn't you plug into a system like this where you've got the best of the best of the best of the best, leading with a proven track record?
Well, I mean, I am so grateful for you to say all of those things, and they are 100% true. I literally came to the Faster Way to prove it wrong. I was so tired of my clients doing all of these things. I was like, okay, this is not going to work. And within a minute, I looked at everything and I was like, this is exactly what works. This is what works. So even as a personal trainer, bringing the Faster Way in, it changed my entire business. It changed my entire career. It changed my entire family. And just like you said, we get to continue to work with people like you who are pioneers. You have been a pioneer from the very beginning, and you are consistently helping women understand that life can begin right now on this good side. And that's what's important. And the best news is because we have this entire community right now, we are going to be opening a round on Monday, but we're going to have these wellness professionals save $25 on that round. Listen, if you guys go into this round and you experience for yourself what the strategies of the Faster Way are, you're going to, just like Natalie said, understand what you can argue against. You can't argue unless you experience it. So saving $25 by registering for this round using the code WellnessPro is absolutely going to help transform not only your life, but the lives of the clients as well. So Natalie, as you were mentioning, how do you make a business out of this, right?
Oh my gosh.
Join the round and then what happens?
Yeah. So are you asking me? Or
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so number one, so as someone who built like fat loss programs for years and years, I got to tell you, like, as proud as I am of all the stuff I built, it's challenging. You being your own business person, your own entrepreneur, your own there's a lot. Like and I'm just talking dollars and cents right now, not just the information you're providing. It costs a lot of money to build those platforms, to build those foundations, to be learning to sell, to do like all the things with that. And for me, like I wanted to focus on just transformation. Like I know if some of you are listening, like you want to focus on your gift, which is transformation. And I want to help clients lead. So for that, like that's where when clients come to me and say, I want to build my own brand, my own program, I have a real frank talk with them. Like, do you want to do it alone or do you want to do it as part of something? Because what I love about a lot of the Faster Way coaches is they get to live in their gifts, doing what they do best, but they don't have to worry about like the whole back end piece, the whole like the accounting stuff, the text, like all the stuff that we don't like to do, right?
I can count to 8 real well.
Yes. But here's what I do want to say. You cannot bring people along a journey with you, sell, enroll, teach, lead, if you don't do it yourself. So that's why even I myself walked through the Faster Way of Fat Loss program. I needed to learn for myself before I could share with other people. So I joined around, I joined it, ego and all, like I know it all, but I'm going to go in. I put my ego aside and I just said, let me learn. And I was like, hey, you know what? This adds to what I teach. This adds to what I know. This adds to what I do. It doesn't take away from. So I want you to consider that if that's you in health and wellness. If you're not in health and wellness and you just know, I've got to release some weight, I've got to get it together. Some of what they're teaching, I'm hearing it. Maybe I don't fully understand it. That's even bigger reason to join and immerse yourself in it, because they make it simple and easy. And you're able to kind of sit back, learn, participate, and get those results without the worry.
Exactly. And so experiencing it is a big component. You know, also becoming a Faster Way coach it's an educational piece. I mean, this is going to be another certification that you can have. And we offer scholarships for our wellness professionals because we know that you guys are working from hour to hour, right? I mean, you are literally trading those hours and those dollars for each other. I would train at 4:30 in the morning all the way until 6 o'clock at night. And that's just one person. All right. But now being able to have a bigger conversation, make bigger impact, linking arms with friends like Natalie and really leading this charge to change a generation and understanding that it doesn't happen overnight. 6 weeks is the starting point. There were so many of Natalie's former clients that we were able to partner with because we were taking it kind of to the next level, seeing their results just compound was absolutely so rewarding for all of us. And taking your ego and putting it at the door. And I respect you so much for saying that because it's hard. We are so creative and we're so proud of what we do. And we know that this has worked for some people and some people and some people. Yeah. But when you know that you found something that can work for all people, then taking that humility pill and recognize that we are here to serve, that is the beautiful part about working alongside each other.
And if you have your own, if you are health and wellness, have your own programs, just like I do, they can work with Faster Way. That's the thing I want. This is not an either or. This is a work with, like I've sent all my clients that have been through my programs. I've told them about Faster Way and I tell them, you do my programs, do theirs too. It works together. It works together. But I personally, just my bias, knowing your program inside out and knowing that your arms, Lee, I'm just going to say, cause I'm obsessed with you. Yo, why wouldn't you do her stuff? Look at her. I can't believe you don't have a tank top on right now.
Well, it's not about me.
But your arms on a billboard would just be enough for people to throw money at Faster Way and say, get me in here. How do I get those?
You are so fun. And, and that's the other thing too. All of our bodies are completely different. We have these strengths and we have these genetics and we have different things that can help kind of catapult us to the next level. And what you bring to us is so much value in regards to mindset and how much we can say, okay, I want my best arms, whatever those are going to be. I'm never going to have your abs. So I'm going to have Lee's best abs. That's another reason I'm wearing the shirt, and that's the deal. So that's what we want to encourage you guys to do. We want to encourage you to join the round that begins on Monday. If you're a wellness professional, save $25 on that round by using the code WellnessPro. And while you're in that round, we want you to consider the coaching certification opportunity. We do have scholarships available for you guys, and I will be giving you a little bit more training, a little bit more extra training as you join this round, and you'll find out more about that for sure. Natalie, I cannot tell you thank you enough. I could talk to you literally all day long. It's just so nice to be with such a kindred spirit during this time, and we're going to change the world together, girl. I promise.
Thanks for having me. And by the way, I just want you to see, Lee, in the comments, I'm reading them
everywhere.
Do these workouts teach Lee's arm workouts? So see, They do, y'all. They do. That's why I joined.
Well, I appreciate it. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining this Science of Fat Loss webinar. Hopefully you understand a little bit more that it's a bigger picture than calories in, calories out. Bio-individuality matters. Your hormones matter. Your workload matters. Your nutrition matters. Let's figure out how to learn about them together. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you guys next time.